So good morning, everyone. How are you doing? I'm very happy to see you here and see you back because some of my students, Pilar, they have just come back from Cádiz. They have been just spending some days there, and I hope you had a great time there. So let me say thank you for being here, and especially to Pilar, Professor Couto. She's an associate professor at the University of La Coruña, and we are honored to have her here because her schedule is usually very, very busy. So she was very kind to give a gap for us for these days, for the conference and for the PhD seminar. So we are really, really honored to have Professor Couto here. Thank you for joining us here. She is a specialist in the didactics of second languages, and she has been teaching in La Coruña for a number of years. She is also a specialist on intercultural and bilingual education mostly, and although she likes to say plurilingual education more than bilingual education because the languages in Galician, as you might know, are Galician and Spanish, and then English and French and German and Italian and whatever. So she will be starting today with the first session on this PhD course entitled Title Authors, Keywords, Abstract Paragraph Writing, and Objective. So you will, I'm more than sure you will learn a lot on her presentation today, because she will be having the most essential features on how to structure and write a scientific paper that you probably will need for your PhD and for your paper publication. So once again, thank you very much for being here, and we are honored to have Professor Couto here.
May I take the mask off? Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Elena, for your kind presentation. I'm really delighted to be here because, as you know, we have been dealing with 2 very terrific years of pandemic so far. So being here face-to-face is really a plus. So thank you very much for being here. And as Elena said, I'm going to present the first session of 3 related to a PhD course in which you are supposed to know and learn how to publish and apply for a paper in a high-level journal, if possible, right? So the first part I'm going to deal with is, as Elena said, the first things that you are supposed to talk about, which is the title, the authors, keywords, how to elaborate your abstract, how to write paragraphs in a coherent way, and also, well, something related to objectives, okay? I would like this session to be kind of practical, so if you are comfortable in the way you are sitting down, it's okay for me. If not, you can join together if you want to work in groups, or we can do the other way around, because maybe you want to publish an article independently, let's say, autonomously. So I don't know if you prefer to work in groups or doing by yourself. Can you please tell me your options? Because we can work both ways. What do you prefer? Working in groups? In groups? Is okay for you? Yes? Fine. So if you want to work in groups, just join together to work. We got the micro there if you want to use it. Fine?
Okay, guys, the mic is here. So just, if you want to use it, just switch it on. Right? And you will be talking, right? And listen.
It's strongly recommended that you use it, because in that way it would be, yeah, wherever. So we will try to work, I will try to explain, and then you will be working on the practical thing, right? That's the key point, for you to join as well and be part of this seminar, okay? Fine. So let's start then. This is what I'm going to talk about, the introduction, the table of contents that everyone should prepare in advance when you are going to make a speech in this case, or if you want to prepare a writing paper, there's also kind of schedule or table of contents needed for you to know what you're going to do next, right? So this is what we are going to do now. You can read it, and if you have questions or doubts, just stop me, and I will try to explain. So let's go to our job, okay? In this introduction, I would like you to think about something in your area of knowledge that you would like to research on and find a research gap, and then brainstorm ideas. So in groups, the groups that you are working now, please think about that. Think about something you would like to prepare a paper, because it's something different, it's something new, it's something original that no one have done previously, and that's why this may be interesting for the academic and scientific community, right? So I will give you a couple of minutes for you to think about this area of knowledge in which you want to work, and think about, brainstorm ideas just to see what do you want to make your paper about, okay? I'll give you a couple of minutes. Yes, I think you got the micro there. If
How many people in the group should there be?
it's up to you, I don't care. 3, 4, 2. You can work together. Cooperative work is a very, very interesting way of doing things. It would be better if we were in the upstairs room, because we could be working in a groups modality, not this way, like, speech but well, it's what we got, no worries. Please, when you finish, let me know. Yes, it's done? No? Couple of minutes more? Ready to go? Anyone? Any group? Could you please just tell us the research gap that you are going to search on? This group over there, you finished? Would you like to share? Thank you.
Okay. In our studies of this semester, going through some articles, we found a gap about the COVID consequences, because of course it just happened, so there is a gap now in literature about this matter. So we tried to came up with a question that is behavioral or social or psychological. We still have to narrow down. So let's say behavioral consequences of pandemic in 0-3 or 3-6 years old children.
Okay, so you are focusing on a very special level of education. You are dealing with post-COVID consequences, whatever they are, and there's a gap, as you said, because it's something new. It was not planned in advance. So, well, you got the general idea. We don't have to be such a specific in this previous moment. We just have the idea, right? Any other group, please? Would you like to share?
As our topic is about bilingual education, we actually want to search something about our own language. So we know that, for example, in my language, there is no corpus linguistics. So actually, we have seen these studies abroad. So we would like to create like corpus linguistics, the small corpora of Azerbaijani language, so that the other people can learn the culture through the concordance lines. Because we know that in corpus linguistics, we have the sentences from authentic world, the real world activities. So it means that they are recording the voices of the different people while they are walking in the street, then they are turning it into the concordance lines. So in this case, when the person reads the concordance lines according to the different words, they can see the frequency of the verse usage, let's say, and like how it's used, how many % it's used by males, by females. So here we can learn many things about the culture. And also, for example, if you take the word take in English language, in concordance lines we can see take in, take out, take away, or take part. So it means that it shows how the word can be used in context and how it can, refer to different concepts in a language. So this is our idea about like corpus linguistics.
Good one. Could you tell us the language?
Azerbaijani language.
Sorry?
Azerbaijani language.
Okay, very good. So there's a lack of corpus, linguistic corpus in that language. So you want to do some research on that according to bilingual education and all the things that she's been saying. Very good. Yeah. Any other group, please? We got two now. One more.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We were thinking of intercultural couples because since we all live in a globalized world, probably there has been more and more international intercultural couples. So we thought if parents' mother languages are different, but they speak English to each other, then which language would a child prefer? And English isn't their mother tongue, but because their parents speak it to understand each other, and we were thinking what challenges could a child face, or to what extent can a child master English, since it's not mother tongue of either parents. And we also wanted perhaps look into raising a child in an English environment and non-English environment. Mm-hmm. But the difficulty is we can't put it in, one research question or topic.
No, it's okay. It's not now the moment.
Yeah, so
we will do that.
Oh, great.
Perfect. I was wondering, maybe your research should be focused on a case study modality, because you're talking about couples, different couples, maybe we can have a result saying, we strongly recommend to find out foreign languages couples for you to improve the knowledge, the linguistic knowledge of your children, I don't know. So it's a research, and it can be done, of course, because maybe this is very, well, I'm sure it is very positive. Of course, but we have to prove that, right? Very good. We got 3. I think there are more groups. Go ahead.
Good morning. Our topic, based on what we also have been working this semester on our classes, is what about playful attitude from teachers in online learning during these past few pandemic years?
Okay, so how to use plays, you mean, and games? Playful is what you said?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, because with the masks sometimes we cannot follow.
Yes, sorry.
So I just want to check if I was right. So very good. Another option, another gap. So how do we use gamification or any other techniques related to playing can be positive for the teaching and learning of languages, which is our common framework, right? Bilingual education or even plurilingual. As Elena said, I come from an autonomous community in Spain, which is called Galicia, Northwest, and we got just from the very beginning 2 mother tongue languages. We got Galician and we got Spanish. So for us, the foreign language is the 3rd one, in fact. So that's why I prefer to talk about plurilingualism, because bilingualism is just 2, but we part just from 2, and then we need more. So I prefer the more wide concept and term of plurilingualism, right? In which all languages can be included. Very good. Another group, please. I think this first time we can go through all of them, and then we just can bring to different examples. But the first time, I think we need to know what you are going to work about.
Okay, we thought about child-centered play therapy in...
excuse me, just a second. Elena, is it possible that when they speak, they can take the mask off just on this moment? Because I think at least I lose some of the information, sorry. So you can take your mask off if you want to, of course, so we can follow you better.
Okay. We
Thank
thought
you.
about child-centered play therapy in Nigeria because we've gone through art schools and we've really seen that there's a gap there. Applying it in preschools.
In preschool level.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a very interesting gap, because nowadays, as you probably know, primary education and secondary education and adult education has been, a lot of research has been done about that, but not at pre-primary. And I think it's the key point, the key level in which we should implement all these teaching and learning languages, because, you know, children are very flexible, they got flexible minds, they learn very quickly, they are very young learners, but they are not silly boys and girls. So I think it's a very interesting place, and there's a big gap when talking about teaching and learning foreign languages. So very good. I think there's 1 or 2 more. We got now 4, I think, 4 groups. Is there any other one? Anyone left? No? Okay, then we can go onwards. So let's start now by the title. You got your idea of what you want to work, this research. Jennifer and Noemi, didn't you say anything? Would you like to?
Okay, so for example, taking into account that I'm going to take this situation because I think that around here it might be maybe more than 10 different nationalities, let's say. So how can we use the proper culture of these different nationalities in order to learn a language? Because, for example, imagine that all these people, not me because I am Spanish, so I don't need to learn Spanish, but how to use the culture of these people in order to learn Spanish as a foreign language. How? Because I think, and you know it because you're my PhD tutor, how can these people use their own culture in order to learn a foreign language? Of course, when we are learning Spanish, the teachers tend to teach us the Spanish culture. So how to do it the other way around? So they feel more connected with the culture of their country and at the same time learning another language.
Good. Thank you so much. So now we are adding a very, very important key concept, which is cultures. When we learn languages, we are not only learning languages, vocabulary, syntax, grammar, and so on. We are only learning cultures. So these two terms, language and culture, they are very close together. They cannot be separate apart, right? So it's another interesting key concept to work with when talking about plurilingualism, teaching and learning foreign languages and bilingual education, right? So very good. Please let me know if there's someone left. I don't want to forget anyone. Is all done now? All the groups? Yes? Okay. So now, let's start by the beginning, even though when we start by the beginning, sometimes we have to go back in the end to the beginning again. And it's what we will do. So, the title. As you all know, we have to find out a title appealing, motivating, because it's the first thing that a researcher is going to read to know if this article is interesting or not for me, for my research. So even though it's a very simple sentence, sometimes is maybe the most difficult thing to do in the end or in the beginning, because we have to be very precise, we have to choose the proper words, we have to deal with this or that concept to clear and clarify so the reader is willing to read what's coming next. Okay? So, you see on the right side 10 words. Usually, editors, when talking about very high impact journals, they ask you to write a title in which 10 or maybe 15, no more than 15 words are included in the title. So as we have just 10 or 15 words, we have to be very precise. We have to choose the proper word for us to go on. So the second point says concise, not very general. Now, in the previous part, you gave me ideas about what you want to work. It is general. We made a brainstorming. We talk about culture. We talk about plurilingualism. We talk about pre-primary. We talk about different concepts. But now we have to focus on what. So it has to be concise, not general. Because if I say, plurilingualism in Spain. You see, this is such a wide concept that we cannot focus in 15 pages, which is usually the average of pages that we have to fulfill for an article. So we have to go to the point. If I want to talk about Galicia, because my study is going to be focused on this community, then I have to say something about Galicia, not Spain. If I want to talk about different cultures in the world, well, it's so wide, so I have to focus on this, that, and this other country or whatever. So, not very general. Usually in the journals, they ask you, well, at least in Spain, they usually ask you for the title in Spanish and English. Sometimes they ask about the title in French, or in your countries probably they ask for the mother tongue and another foreign language, which usually is English, as you know, because English has become kind of lingua franca or standard language for everyone to understand each other, right? But this is an example, of course. You can choose the language of your country, right? But usually 2 languages. Sometimes they ask you for 3. In the journals, right? What do you have to do? Explain the main idea of the research in these 10 or 15 words. And what do you have to include? You have to include the keywords to understand what is coming next. So these 10, 15 words must explain what the reader is going to read in the full and complete article, paper that you are going to write. And back to the title in the end is what we are going to do. Now we are going to make a first draft of our title, but it's not going to be the final, because during the process of preparing and writing the article, things may change. So we need to go back in the end to make a full reflection when everything is done, and then see if the title is really what we wanted to say and we wanted to explain, so the readers can, throughout the title, they say, okay, I'm interested in this article. On the right side, at the bottom, you see some tips. I like to give tips to my students. So that's why I wrote, refine the title when you finish your article. Okay? So it's just the first draft, and we will be back to the title later on. So now your task. Prepare a first draft, both in English and Spanish, or in English and in your mother tongue, I don't care, for the title of your research, the research that you have been explaining in groups, right? Remember, no more than 10, 15 words. There you got an example, impacto de la educación bilingüe entre egresados de programas bilingües mexicanos, and in English, impact of bilingual education on graduates from Mexican bilingual programs. I can give you, well, 10, 5, 8 minutes, so let's do that in groups, okay? Please let me know when you finish, okay? Have you got your first draft? Not yet? Ready? Not yet? Okay, ready now? Yes? Anyone who would like to share the first draft, the first title, that is for sure that we are going to change it?
As I have the mic, I'm going to start, okay?
Okay.
So we have decided in English the following title: Teaching Spanish as a Foreign Language in Pluricultural Context, a Case Study.
Okay. Sorry? Go ahead.
Like taking into account the idea that I presented before with these students that belong to different nationalities, we wanted to continue developing that idea.
Good. So now with the title, we are focusing on the research gap that we were preparing in advance. Any other group, please? Yes?
Thank you so much. Excuse me. So as we have said, we are thinking about CCPT, so our title is going to be Adapting CCPT to the Preschool Policy in Nigeria. Also, we're thinking about another title, which is the impact of CCPT intervention for children with behavioral problem in Nigeria.
Good. That's good because we can have a plan B always, so we can have more than one titles. That's right. And in the end, you will decide which one is fits best. Very good.
Thank you.
Another group, please. Over there. Ah, yes.
So our title for the first one is Playful Teacher Strategies, Teaching Foreign Language in Online Plurilingual Class. And another option is Playful Online Teaching, Strategies in Teaching Foreign Language in Plurilingual Class.
Good. So another two options again. Very well. Another group?
So our working title is English Language Acquisition by Children, a case study of a Kazakh-Pakistani couple.
Good, good. You take care that you are not using more than 15 words, because if not, the editors, they are going to say it's too long, just you have to cut somewhere or delete some words.
Sure. But I think we also need to do some reading, because I think we're still not familiar with certain terms. And that's why perhaps it's wordy. Hopefully we will be able to shorten.
Sure, sure. Very good. As I said, this is a first draft. It can be changed. Sometimes maybe we change the whole title because of the research we've done. Okay.
So as our topic was a little bit, how to say, out of the research, because first we have to create our own corporate, then we can work on some gaps. So we decided to work on COCA, like contemporary, like Corpus of Contemporary American English. So our title is The Application of Politeness Principles While Using the Adjectives with Negative Connotations, Lazy, Poor, and Nosy. So these 3 adjectives.
Good. So now you are focusing your research gap.
Yeah.
You see, sometimes thinking about the title helps us to narrow the research. Very good. Is there anyone left? This group?
We were thinking about psychosocial consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic in Spanish toddlers.
So now you are thinking about keywords, Spanish, because we focus in Spain, pandemic, because we are going to deal with this, and so on. We will see now in a minute with the keywords, okay, which will help, again, to organize and prepare the title, of course. Is there anyone? Yes, over there.
Our topic was motivation, and we think the title could be Motivation and its Impact on Second Language Learning in Bilingual High Schools.
Again, motivation, keywords, which are supposed to be in the title. Are we done? Yes? All the groups? Fine. So let's move on, if possible. I don't know why this is not working. Maybe Antonio, help. Can you call him? ¿Podéis avisar al técnico, por favor? Porque esto no... Sorry for this. Viene. Por más que le doy, no. No, okay. Sorry for that. Now it works. So, the next step, authors, right? We will be back to the title when we talk about the key concepts, the key words, but now we have to deal with authors, right? And for the authors, we got some keys for you to remember. The first one, of course, is to write the name. The second one is the surnames, and this is important for you to start using your scientific and academic name. how do you want all the scientific community knows who you are? So that's why the next one, the use of hyphen. You see a hyphen there? This hyphen, you see? In Spain, we usually have two surnames. My name is Couto-Cantero. We got my father's name and my mother's name. This is the typical thing we got in Spain. Not in all the countries, as you know. In the Saxon or English-speaking countries, they only take one surname. So, if we have very ordinary or common surnames, Díaz, López in Spanish is very common, so it's very difficult for us to be known. So one option for us, the Spanish people, is to use the hyphen and write Couto-Cantero. So in that way, I got kind of just one surname, but using my two surnames, my mother's and my father's surname. This is an option, of course, and it can be used or not. You have to decide anyway how do you want all the community knows you from now onwards that you are going to start publishing and doing research, right? So this is one of the ideas you have to bear in mind. Number of authors in an article, right? It's another important thing to think about. I wrote maximum 5. There's no limits. You can do a research in which there are many people involved, and it's okay, especially in the sciences or in medical things or in biology or any other scientific areas. In our area, more than 5 is full house. If you are going to be assessed or evaluated by important people in your country, and they say if your publications and everything is fine or not, they usually don't take into account if you publish with many people. So my recommendation is not more than 5, even no more than 3. 3 is, circle number, but more than that is crowded house, I think. So anyway, you can choose how many people you want to work with, of course, and depending on the study, it can be 1, 2, 3 or more. But generally speaking, 3, it's okay, at least in Spain, because as I said, in that way, if you publish with many people, they don't even count this publication, right? So think about the number of authors you are going to work with, and of course you have to be very comfortable with these people. You cannot work with people that you are not really feeling sympathetic or empathy or whatever, right? It's very important to work in a comfortable way with people, the same idea as you. Another important thing for you to bear in mind when preparing an article to be published is the order of the names of the authors, because the first thing you send is what is going to be. They are not going to change it at all. So imagine in these groups that we've been doing, who is going to be the first author, which is really the one who is going to be, sound much more because it's the first one. So I can say Couto-Cantero and Fraga and Melendez and Lopez, whatever. But the main one is going to be the first one. So you have to take that into account when publishing. If you work in group, sometimes there's one member of the group who needs very much because he's going to apply for a job or whatever, and then this person needs very much to be the first person in the row, right? So maybe you may agree with the group and say, this time I'm going to be the first, next time you will be the first, I will be the second, and so on and so forth. So you have to, my recommendation for you when you start working in group is just clarify all these terms at the very beginning, because if not, maybe you may have kind of, fight or problems. I was first, no, you were first, and so on. So the order is very important, and also something I'm going to talk about later on. But now let's go to the schedule. So another important thing is the ORCID. Have you heard about the ORCID number? This ORCID ID? No. Okay. If you want to publish in a very important journal, you have to be registered in this ORCID ID. This is, just generally speaking, is kind of your identity card in the community research environment, right? So I got my ORCID ID, and it's only me, the one who's got this number. So no one is going to be confused, even though there are many Pilar Coutos in the world, because my ORCID number is this one, with these numbers, right? So one of the things you are supposed to do, if you didn't do it, is to register in this is the website, ORCID.org register. So if you are going to prepare your PhD doctoral thesis, it's something you just have to do. Not now, maybe, because we want to go onwards, but take that into account. You are supposed to have your ORCID ID number, which is the one and only for you, the only person who's got this number, right? Also, they asked you for the institution. My institution is Universidad de La Coruña, and yours, Universidad, wherever you come from, and so on, or Institute of Languages, or Center for Education, whatever it is, the institution in which you are working. And of course the country, Spain, Nigeria, Kenya, Italy, Poland, wherever, okay? My tip for this authors section is this one. Prepare the corresponding author and a short biodata. Right. Usually when you're going to apply for a paper in a journal, if you are 4 writers, imagine, editors are not going to communicate to all of them. So there's always one corresponding author. This person is not going to, I mean, not necessarily has to be the first one, but it's going to be the person in contact, in touch with the editors. So any information, any suggestion, any review, any comment from the editors is going to be directed to the corresponding author. And it can be the second person signing, right? So you just have to decide, if you work in groups, who is going to be the corresponding author. And this is the person who is going to be in touch, as I said, with the editors to make it fluent and just one, not many people, and getting lost over the emails and so on. Any question? Yes? Could you use the microphone? I can't hear, I'm sorry.
What do you think we should include in that short bio data?
I was going to talk about that, right. So the first tip, corresponding author, decide who is going to be, and then the short biodata, right? This is kind of 3-4 lines paragraph in which you present yourself. For instance, PhD Pilar Couto-Cantero is a full-time professor at the University of La Coruña. She's been teaching this, that, and that. She works on these PhD programs. She teaches at this master level or undergraduate programs at this school. And her research area of knowledge are this, that, and that. So it's a very short presentation for the readers to know what are you interested in and who you are and where do you work. Kind of very short. We will see examples, okay? So this is for the authors, all the things that I kindly remind you to bear in mind if you want to publish, because they are going to ask you in one or another journal, right? So again, your turn. You see, in groups, decide who is going, this is a mock article, of course, but you have to decide now in groups who is going to be first, who is going to be the corresponding author, which is going to be your biodata, and, well, you have an example there. When I'm going to decide because it works in this one. You got the examples, for instance, mine, Pilar Couto-Cantero, and my ORCID number, which is the only one in the world. Elena Gómez Parra, ORCID number, and Roberto Espejo Moedano, another ORCID number. So all the ORCID numbers have to be there somewhere in the article because they are going to ask for that. That means that you are alive, you are real in the scientific community, right? If you haven't got your ORCID number, you are no one, okay? So, discuss in group and write the names of the authors according to your needs. Remember what we've been discussing, including the ORCID, you can invent it, okay? It's not need that you go now and register. And then write the institution, the country, and so on. I'll give you a couple of minutes for you to organize that, and we can go onwards. Of course, if you got questions or comments, just raise hands. Okay, I think this is not a very difficult task. So any of you, I think this time we don't need to follow the 4 groups. Just any group, just tell us, why did you decide to be the first one, and, well, kind of mock preparation.
Okay, let us try. So we decided to put it like based on alphabetical order, and we tried to write the last name first, and then the first name come along. So the first one is Gabrina Putri Alfa Sobri, which is me. And then the second one is Josephine Marcela, and then third one will be Makaya Macarena.
Okay.
Is that right?
Perfect,
okay.
Perfect. And then you write the ORCID ID number, and then you write the institution. Okay. Can you tell us your institutions, for instance?
Yeah, University of Cordoba.
Okay.
We come from the same
University of Cordoba, because you are PhD or master students at University of Cordoba. Yeah. So now, at this moment in which you are going to apply for a paper in a review, you belong to the University of Cordoba, of course. Okay. Sometimes this can be changed depending on the places you work all around The world.
The world, okay.
Good. And the country, in this case, would be Spain. Córdoba,
Spain,
Spain. Okay. Is there anything or anyone who would like to say something? Yes? Okay. The micro over there. Fine.
Yeah, I have a question. So in order to register for our seed ID, do we need to have any kind of qualifications or degrees, or anyone can register there?
I don't remember because I did it time ago, but I think you don't need that. You just have to register, and then maybe at this very moment in your register, nothing appears because you are brand new, but in the future, everything will be registered there. If we have internet, ¿tenemos internet? Por favor. Luego podría yo entrar, no ahora, pero podría entrar en internet. No sabes. Le preguntamos luego a Antonio. If we have the opportunity to Google on the internet, I can display and show examples, right? But I think you don't need to publish, because everyone starts by the beginning. So you are not just coming through with many publications in your backside. You just have to start with the first one. So answering to your question, I think you don't need that.
Okay, thank you.
More questions or doubts? Yes?
I had a question about independent researchers. If you don't belong to any institution, what do you write?
Okay, you can also register. So you are Juan Pérez or Maria López, and then you have your ID number. And when talking about institution, you can write independent researcher or whatever you like to write down for you to be known in the scientific community. And let me just say something about the alphabetical order. Sometimes it's correct and it's needed because we are not able to come up with an agreement or something, so the alphabetical order is an option, of course. So thank you very much for pointing out that. Okay? More questions about authors? No? Fine. So, regarding authorship, I think those are the key points that you are supposed to remember and bear in mind. Okay? Oh my God. I don't know why this works or it doesn't. No? Ya probé. I tried in the but it doesn't. And I don't know where do I have to point. I'm sorry about this. Va aquí, pero no va ahí. Perdona, que a lo mejor no eres tú el especialista. Yo le doy aquí, no ves, aquí me lo cambia, pero ahí no. Y ya no sé qué más puedo hacer. Ahora. Sí. Vale. Vale. Bueno. Okay, there we go. Let's go to the keywords, right? You know, it's very important to think about keywords because all the machines and researchers, automatic researchers and everything, very quickly find out keywords to focus on the topic that you want to work with. So if you want to think, to do a paper about bilingual education, it's clear that BE or bilingual education is going to be in your search. Or if it's going to be related to a country, then the name of the country. Or if it's going to be related to primary, then primary. So keywords are really, really very important words, as the name itself says, for you to focus your paper and your research. Let's see what we got there. Generally speaking, 3 to 5, mainly 5 keywords are going to be needed for you to write in your application for a paper in a journal. Those keywords, usually 5, maybe sometimes 6, 7, but well, among 3 and 5, let's say. Many reviews, many important journals and reviewers ask you to find out these keywords in these two websites. The ERIC one, you see here, and the UNESCO one. It's kind of thesaurus where all the keywords for any research are included. So if you want to do research on, psychology, you search for this keyword, psychology. Again, if the word that you want to focus on is in these websites, it's going to be found out very quickly. If the word is kind of, a concept which is not included in these websites, maybe it's difficult for researchers, and people who is willing to read your article is going to find it out. But, well, sometimes we can follow this, sometimes we can't. But generally speaking, it's interesting for you to get used to find out your keywords in these websites, because they are going to ask for that. Most of the main and very prestigious journals, right? Again, Spanish and English, or French and Spanish, or English and the mother tongue of the journal in which it's published, and so on. Another thing which is, simple but important at the same time is the use of comma or semicolon. Depending on the journals, they ask you to write the keywords followed by a comma or a semicolon. Nowadays, the most general one is the semicolon, right? So you write bilingual education, semicolon, primary, semicolon, motivation, semicolon, and so on and so forth until 5 keywords, right? You have to follow the journal guidelines, but generally speaking, they ask you for the semicolon. Another thing they usually ask you for is to write capital letters or not. Years ago, it was capital letters, but nowadays the mainstream is to use not use capital letters, because I don't know how to explain that, because it depends on the machines they use to do the research and the searching of the keywords, but they want the words to be not in capital letters, because sometimes they get confused. So they ask you to write the keywords without capital letters, right? Unless you mention a country, for instance, Spain, then you write Spain in capital. But if not, if you write bilingual education, for instance, they ask you to do it without capital letters, right? My tip is, think about the impact of your keywords. Imagine that you are not the writer, that you are the reader of your article. So which are the keywords that you want to make an impact on, right? So for instance, in some of the examples you gave, motivation, primary, gamification, very important keywords that very quickly give the idea of what you are going to do your research on. Is it clear? Yes? So, let's go to the practice now. Then write 5 keywords in English and Spanish. Remember to use the thesaurus. I don't know if you have got web sites or in your mobile phones or whatever. If not, just think about the words. Don't worry, this is a mock. Okay? There you got an example. Bilingual education, you see, without capital. English, because it's an adjective and it's with capital. But language learners, you see, comma, I should write semicolon, right? I have to change that. Mexico, in this case, this study was focused on Mexican students, so we have to write Mexico. And then CEOP, which is a very common acronym that everyone who is in this research area may understand, like EFL, English as a Foreign Language, or typical acronyms that everyone in the community in which you are working, they understand. Okay? And then, well, think about 5 keywords for your mock articles, okay? Ready? Yes? Okay, anyone? Your words? Which group? Where's the micro? Come on. Come on, 5 keywords for a research.
Okay, so we came up with these 5 keywords. Since our research is going to be on the psychosocial consequences of COVID in preschoolers, we came up with pandemic, preschoolers, psychosocial, Spanish, COVID-19.
Okay, perfect. So anyone who would like to work on this topic, just by clicking these keywords, would find their research. Okay, that's the key idea. Any other group as an example?
Our keywords are motivation, bilingual education, second language, and secondary education.
Okay, so keywords again: motivation, second language learning, whatever are the most important words in our research. Any other one, or shall we go on?
We have English language acquisition, intercultural couples, linguistic mediation, plurilingualism, and Kazakh-Pakistani.
Okay, so in that way, any researcher who want to focus on Pakistan, then they will know. If they talk about, and let me just stop for a while in this concept, which is very important, acquisition. If you work on bilingual education, remember that it's not the same language acquisition that language learning. As researchers, you have to be very, very clear when using key concepts, right? Because if you don't use them properly, then you may get confused and make your readers get confused. So, as you all know, it's not the same language acquisition than language learning. There are a lot of literary review on that, right? As they want to work on couples and how they teach or how they learn languages in a natural way, that's why they are talking about language acquisition and not language learning. So you have to be very, very careful about the words that you choose, because you are BIP researchers, right? You are very important persons when doing your research. So you have to choose the proper and perfect word. It's the same as we say second language, okay? It's not the same foreign language learning than second language. So if you want to write about that, maybe a footnote should be compulsory, and then you explain, I'm going to use second language, understanding this concept in this way, and explaining why. Or for the sake of the literature review and so on, I'm going to use them both, but I know they are different, right? So you have to be clear when using key concepts and being very careful when you choose them. Okay? Any other concept? Any other group? Yes?
So what about composed words? So for example, there is not just a simple word. You say like English language learners. So
yeah.
So when do we get to decide that or not? Why not like just like language learners and then like English? How like we say like, yeah, this is just one word, or we decide to divide it, or how does that work?
Thank you for the question. In general, it's better to choose one: motivation, primary, I don't know, acquisition. But sometimes we cannot just say one word. In that case, we can use these, and they are not going to be in the thesaurus, probably. But maybe the editors allow that because they consider it's okay, and it explains really what you want to say in your article, in your paper, and then they allow that. But if possible, it's better to choose one. If not possible, then you have to use whatever you need to explain yourself, right? But generally speaking, the big impact journals ask you for these keywords, mainly one, and included in the thesaurus that I've been displaying in the previous slide. But of course, sometimes we have to use educación bilingüe. Bilingual education is bilingual education. If I write bilingual, you don't understand, because bilingual can be many different things. If I write education, it's very, very general, but I'm focusing on bilingual education. And sometimes we could write the acronym BE, because all the jargon for the community working on bilingual education knows that BE is bilingual education. So very quickly you know that we are talking about that. Did I answer to your question? Yes?
Yes, and thank you.
I've got a question in that line. For example, with second language learning, is it better to write second language learning or SLL?
Sorry, I didn't understand your question.
In that same line, that when you have more than one word, is it better to write second language learning or SLL? The acronym. Doesn't matter.
I have seen both. Okay. I don't really. I mean, if it is a very specific journal, they really know what's the acronym. So you can do it. Even it's much more, visual aid. Very quickly you find it out. You see COP there. You have to know what's that. If you don't know what's that, then it's, you don't really, you are not into. So, my advice, maybe you can include one or no more than 2 acronyms, and then keywords, mainly 1 if possible, if not, compound words. That's my advice. But sometimes an acronym very quickly to find it out because you are in the same loop, it's okay, at least for me. More questions? More comments? More keywords? There we go. Okay, let's go to the abstract, right? Now we got the title, the first draft, we got keywords, we have been making a brainstorm about what we want to work on and do research on, and now we have to write a paragraph, right? This is the abstract, the famous abstract that is compulsory for any journal to be published, right? And there you can see different options because there's not always the one and only, right? There are options. And let me tell you that depending on the reviewers, the editors, the journal, the country in which the journal is published, they will ask one or another thing. And please do not surrender because you can apply for many different journals and they say no, 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 no. And then you feel like going down and say, I'm not good one for them, so I'm not doing right, I'm doing wrong, so I have to move on and do another thing. And this is not the position you have to play. You just have to try in a different journal because as many journals are in the world, as many people behind them. So what is good for me maybe is not good for them, and so on and so forth. So please never surrender, right? You are going to be said no, 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 but it's not a problem. You just have to try and improve your articles with the reviewers' comments and then go onwards and onwards and on and on and on until someone says, it's good, we are going to publish it. It deserves to be published, right? This is my advice. Even though people who is on top, sometimes the publishers said no, so don't worry about that. And even you, that you are going to be first, starting just from the beginning. So, the abstract, let's go to this right side, this part, okay? Usually they ask you for 100, 150, no more than 200 words. So these 200 words have to be precisely written. Why? Because it's the short paragraph that you're going to read and then you go into the full article or not. So, usually they ask you to write the abstract in 2 languages, English and Spanish, French and English, whatever, again, but 2 languages. Sometimes in some journals, 3 languages, as I told you. The style, there are many different options, but generally speaking, what most of the journals ask you to do is write in an impersonal way. They don't really like, we did that, I have been researching on. They don't really like that. They want impersonal things, right? Like research has been done results show, and these kind of sentences, right? So impersonal, and sometimes past is kind of, boring thing for you to read. So they ask you to write in present. Results show that. No, result has been developed and have been shown and demonstrated that. No, very clear, go straight ahead to the point, impersonal and in present if possible, right? This is the recommendation. The structure. We will talk about the structure on the left side, but generally speaking, we have to say why our research is original, why do we deserve to be published, because this is something new and never have done before, like in a doctoral thesis, right? Like a doctoral thesis has to be original, never said before. The objectives that we want to focus on, what for this research, which is the objective I'm going to follow and try to fulfill. How do I design the research, the methodology I'm going to use or not, the theoretical framework, if it's going to be a quantitative or qualitative research, if I'm going to use the case study modality as we've seen in one of your proposals, if it's going to be a review or whatever. We have to explain that because the reader wants to know. After that, the results of the research, whatever they are, and our implications and limitations of the study. Maybe if it is a case study, it's very narrow and is not the sample for the whole world. So this is a limitation of the study. I have to highlight this and say, well, in the future, this or that can be done to improve, or I've been trying to do this at primary level. It would be interesting to do it in secondary level to follow, no? So all the information related to the whole final idea and what we've done and the results of that must be in the abstract. And the findings and final conclusions, right? They really like to find out what's the final conclusion about this. Okay, you've done this, and what? Okay? The most general structure to write an abstract is this one, the IMRAD. Have you heard about this before? Yes, some of you? The IMRAD structure: introduction, method, results, and discussion. So as you got 100 or 150 words or 200 words, you have to be very careful when choosing what to write in each part of the structure of the abstract, because everything must be there in a very short paragraph. A very short resume of the whole article must be there. So this IMRAD or IMRAD is a common organizational structure. Introduction: what did I study? The method: how did I study? The methodology I've been using, as I said, quantitative, qualitative, case study, classroom action research, project-based learning, I don't know, whatever you choose. Then the results: which results did I obtain after implementing this methodology? Which were the results that I obtained? And finally, a discussion: how do I read and understand the results? Usually the discussion is related to the theoretical framework. I give a lot of references, bibliographic references about authors that have been working on this previously. And then when we are about to reach the end of the article, we go back to the theoretical framework and discuss. This person said that, but according to the results, we have found that this other thing. Do you follow me? Yes? So this must be included in the discussion, right? Another option I really like very much, because the IMRAD structure is the scientific method for sciences, but we belong to the social sciences, to the humanistic approach, to the linguistic approach, and we don't really I mean, we are not doing experiments in a lab, right? We are dealing with different things, and sometimes our conejillos de Indias, our, how do we say that in English? Help, Jennifer, do you remember? I don't remember the name. I'm not using rats in a lab, I'm using students. Do you follow me? So when I'm doing research in a classroom, my students are the experiment, are the participants. Of course, we have to follow the ethical considerations and everything related to ethic findings and so on. And it's very important that we pay attention to that as well. But as I was saying, this first structure is much more following the scientific method for the sciences, biology, chemistry, even medical research. But for us, sometimes it's very difficult to follow. If I am studying, if one of my students with low level of, I don't know, knowledge because of whatever reason, maybe students with special educational needs or something, then I cannot follow this. I cannot, because I'm talking about one case maybe and one student, precise student, but maybe my research is really important and I can share it with many other researchers and compare. So the other one I also like very much, this one, the CARS model. Create a research space, is what they call. This is by Swells in the 90s. And what these researchers say? First thing, establishing the territory, establishing importance of the topic and reviewing previous work. So this is finding the research gap, okay? The second step, identifying a niche indicating a gap in knowledge. So I've been studying this and that, and now I find out that this is not in there. So this is my niche, is where I can prove something or do some research, original, brand new. And then occupying this niche in listing purpose of new research, listing questions, stating the value of the work, indicating the structure of the writing, and so on. Sometimes a mix of both would be fine. So you can follow the first one, but you can say, this is something that have been never studied before. So you give power and you give more importance to your research because it's new. So it's up to you, and of course your PH tutors or mentors who help you to do the right thing. My tip. Importance of the abstract. It is the key to open or not the door to the complete article. A researcher who is trying to find bibliography and references on this or that area of knowledge is going to very quickly make a reading of the abstract. Of course, the title and the keywords previously, but the abstract. So they are going to read the abstract and say, well, I need to read the whole article, or no, this is not interesting for me. So, as I say in this tip, is the key to open or not the door to the full article. You want researchers to read your article. So, even though the abstract is 100 words, 150, and it's very short, to me is basically the most important part of the article, right? Because it's the key point for going to the next step or not, or just skipping it and trying to find out another one. So those are the basic structures when writing an abstract. The abstract must be a short summary of the section of the article, written in one coherent paragraph, so introduction, method, results, discussion, findings, whatever, but very clear. Impersonal, as I said, past or present tense, we've been talking about this, done as an independent test, So you cannot say, as we will see in the introduction section, no, because it has to be independent. You have to read it just by your own in an independent way. And written at the end, you see again the title, sometimes the keywords, and especially the abstract change, because when we finish our research, probably we will have the whole idea, and then we will be able to really go to the point of the key points we have to write in the abstract. You can, of course, start writing a very general idea, because sometimes you are asked for an abstract before they say yes or no, and that's the way it is. For instance, if you want to go to a conference, they ask you for an abstract, a previous abstract, and sometimes you didn't do the whole paper. So you have to improvise, you have to write what you want to do. But when you finish, it's probable that you may want to change the abstract, right? What an abstract must not include, this is important. It must not contain the same sentences as the original paper. You have to rewrite them because it's an independent paragraph. Remember that? They must not contain references, nor abbreviations or examples. We are talking about the abstract, right? It must not contain, of course, tables, figures, graphics, and so on, because it's a one independent paragraph, as we said. It must not contain personal statements or opinions. We find it, we decided, we think, no. It's impersonal, goes to the point, and says what's done in the article. It must not include what is not in the original paper. We cannot say one thing in the abstract and then go to the article and see that this is different. It's not what we say. So we have to be coherent. And finally, must not include conclusions which are not evidenced. You cannot say, results show that couples include this or that, if it's not proved throughout the results and the method in the article. Is it clear? Yes? We will make a short break now. I think you are going to be tired. So, to end up with the abstract, there's a very short checklist for you to, see if the abstract has been done properly or not. So, does the abstract contain the main idea of the research? Yes, no. Is it easily understood? One of my advices for my PhD students is, please send this to someone who doesn't know anything about the topic and ask him or her to read it and feedback, right? Because they don't know anything about that, and if they read the paragraph and they understand what you want to do, it's well done. If they don't understand, they are lost, something is wrong. We have to reorganize. We have to rewrite the abstract. So this is my advice for you. Sometimes we are very close to the tree, so we cannot see the woods, right? The forest. So we need an external view to tell us, I understand this, I don't understand this, why do you write this, I don't follow. Thus include the answers to what did I start, what has been done, what did you find out, and which conclusions were obtained. So the IMRAD structure, introduction, methodology, results, and discussion. Are all subsections correctly evidenced? Sometimes we can make a very short sentence in which we say, this paper is divided into 3 sections. The first one is devoted to the theoretical framework, the second one is the empirical research, and the final one is the conclusions and discussion, something like that. Is there a balance among all subsections? We cannot devote 5 lines to the introduction and then just 1 line to the discussion. There's no place for all of them. We have to balance, right? And finally, does it contain more than 3 abbreviations not generally accepted? So take care with that. It's better that we, in the abstract, we don't use, apart from foreign language or typical BE, typical acronyms that we really know by heart. Okay? This is the task, but I think if you feel like we can make a break or not, it's up to you, you tell me. Yes, a break, so you can have a coffee or just go for a walk and be back. If you want, you can start thinking about how is going to be your paragraph for your mock papers in groups, but let's make a short break, I don't know, 10 minutes or something. I will be here waiting for you. Okay, so. Okay, ready to go back? As you have at 12 with Alberto, the second session, I don't want to spend a lot of time. I don't know, it's up to you. If you want to write the abstract, we can do that as a task. If not, we can go onwards and I try to explain. You prefer me to go onwards? Fine. So, well, you have an example there of how to write an abstract according to all the suggestions on the previous slides, okay? Concise, present, impersonal, trying to follow the IMRAD and the CARS structure for you to go to the point, okay? Any doubt or question about this? Fine. Now, paragraph writing. I'm just going to stop for a while and I will try to prepare a pack with 2 or 3, at least to me, important documents. If you want them, I will give them to Elena or whoever for you to got them, right? The first one is this one, you can see, this academic phrase bank. This is for you to write a paper in English, and it's really, really very interesting for you to know how to start a paragraph, therefore, nevertheless, according to, all these expressions that we need to use in an academic contest for us to write in English, and I think it's really, really very helpful. It's a PDF, and I can share this with you, right? I will send it to Elena, as I said, and I will give you all this information. I think it's really very useful. I give this to all my PhD students, right? And if you want, the whole is there. This is the Academic English Phrase Bank. This is Dr. John Morley, the University of Manchester. This is the website, and this is the full book, right? What I'm going to share with you is that one. I don't know if it's 50 pages or something like that in a PDF, right? But very, very useful in my view. My tip for paragraph writing. A mature paragraph must be written with cohesion, coherence, and coordination, right? We need to find out paragraphs well written with 10 or 15 or 20 lines, and then like the cherries going one after another with a coherent way of writing. So in a paragraph, you can express a whole idea. In 2 lines, you cannot. So to find out a very well-written document, whatever it is, a PhD, doctoral thesis, a end of master's degree, a journal, a paper in a journal, whatever, it needs coherence and cohesions, right? So big paragraphs in which we explain the whole idea, very well expressed, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and to end up as a summing up, as a conclusion, and then we end up the full circle of the paper that we are writing. Okay? So try not to write 3 lines paragraphs and then full stop and then another one, because this is not mature. This is not, it's kind of, you know, teenager way of writing, and you are adults, very important researchers. Okay? That's the key point. you see an example there. We are not going to read it, and you are not going to write now, but you can see in the yellow part a big paragraph in which I display this and that ideas according to this, and then the blue one, therefore, whatever, blah, 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 and then regarding to, right? So you connect, you use connectors in this phrase academic bank I displayed on the previous slide. So you can prepare and organize your paragraph writing precisely, properly, and in an adult way of writing, okay? So you should be doing this with your mock journals, right? In that case. And very quickly, let's go to the objectives. The objectives, because it's part of the introduction in which you are supposed to write the main idea, what's this for, what is this article about, and which are my objectives. They must be clear and well-defined. I'm sure all the groups, you can imagine the 2 or 3 objectives that you can prepare for your papers. I want to get clear conclusion about if couples, for instance, is a good way of learning, acquisition of different languages just from the very early ages, whatever is the objective, right? Or I want to know if all the most languages we learn or we work together, the better for this or that. So clear objectives and well-defined. My suggestion is not too many. I think 3, it's okay, maybe 5, and I think it's too much because articles usually are 6,000, 8,000 words. So this is 8 to 9 pages, no more. So if you prepare many objectives, you have to discuss and you have to give information about all of them in the conclusion section. So it's going to be very much for a paper or an article in which only 6,000 or 8,000 words are needed to write it.
So how many?
How many? Sorry, how many objectives? In my view, 3, it's a circle number. I'm very kind, I like to be, how can I say? I like to make a circle in the articles I'm writing, so 3 is a key number, 5 maybe, 7, but I think those are too many. So my personal opinion, but it's not the law, of course, it's my opinion. 3 is perfect. Maybe sometimes it's 2. Maybe sometimes it's just 1 because it's too much and huge research I have to do. So don't worry about. My advice is quality better than quantity. So it's better to choose 1 or 2, well done, with the full circle completed, than try to search for many and then just, not giving all the information of all of them. Okay? Not too long, not a long, I don't know in your countries, but in Spain we are very much like during compound sentences, this and that, therefore, and so, and then, and blah, blah, and we make big, big, big sentences, and this is not the way that the English section, English writers like to find out in the articles. So try to make short objectives, short sentences, very clear, and with a lot of periods of stops, and then the next idea, because if we tend to do that, the Spanish people, we tend to do that, and this sometimes is always ask for review. Long sentence, please rewrite. Long sentence, you don't understand. So this is typical mistake that Spanish people make. Infinitive. Usually objectives in Spanish go in infinitive. In English, they can go in ing form, as you know. Searching the way of, trying to find out, blah, blah, blah. But usually prepare a clear objective, right? Explaining perfectly and well defined. Must be connected to the discussion and conclusion sections. If in the introduction I say the objective of this paper is blah, 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 when reaching the end, in the conclusion section, I have to go back to this objective and say, according to this, blah, 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 those people said that, but my final research is this one. So again, the circle. We start by the beginning, we go back, and then we full the circle. We complete it. My tip here, objectives might be clear and answered through the discussion and conclusion sections of the article. Well, what I have said just a minute ago. Any doubt, question about objectives? Yes? The micro, where is it? Okay, thank you.
My question was about the connection between objectives and research questions. Can we just, I have difficulty of rephrasing objectives so that I don't repeat my research questions. Right? For example, if my objective is to examine the challenges of acquiring English in this intercultural couple families, and then my research question is, what are the challenges, right? Is it okay that it's the same, basically, or should they be different?
Okay, it's a very interesting question. The research question is kind of the general idea that you want to find out in the end. It's much more wide topic, so it's in general, you tell me, you are the group in which you work with a couple, is that? Fine, so your question is the brainstorming, the main idea, the title. So you want to write something about, tell me. You tell me, the couples?
How do children acquire English if the parents' mother tongues are not English, but they use it as a medium of communication?
So this is the research question, right? You can create and write it down in a different way, different from the title, of course, but in general speaking, that's the idea. You want to know that. And for that, you can plan 2 or 3 objectives. First one, I want to know if, I don't know, imagine, is there any problem is the same, I mean, it doesn't matter if it is the father or the mother, maybe there are, as at the very early ages, children are much more in touch with the mother because they gave birth and breast and they drink milk and so on. So maybe this is something which makes an impact. Maybe this is one of my objectives, right? So this research question is much more general idea, and then you plan 2 or 3 objectives to know and find out if your research question is going to be answered. And then throughout this, you plan the methodology. To answer this objective, I'm going to use this qualitative SPS methodology to get to know how many people in these couples that I've been doing research on, blah, blah, blah. To answer my second question, I'm going to prepare a questionnaire. So those are the instruments of the research. But I'm not going to deep on this because the second session and the third session of this one, they are going to explain that better than me. But generally speaking, I think that's the answer, right? So the objectives are kind of the guides for you to give answer to your research question. More, yeah?
I have another question, because sometimes when we write some papers, so they ask us to write objectives and to explain objectives. But actually, for example, in my home country, in Italy, when you have the objective section, you just put your 3, 4, 5 objectives and that's it. You don't explain them because you're gonna explain them in the meanwhile, like while you're doing the research, while you do your the long paragraph explaining everything, you also explain the objectives. So my question is, when we are asked to explain the objectives, can we just, I don't know, write the sentence about our objectives and leave it like that? Or we also have to add 2 or 3 other sentences to explain each objective?
Okay. Of course, there's not only one answer, as I said. It depends on the journals and the editors, and as many editors in the world, as many people in the world. So if I am editor of this journal, I'm going to give my opinion. If you are editor in other journal, maybe you say the other way around. But my opinion is that talking about writing an article for a journal, right? This is not an end of master's degree. This is not a doctoral thesis. I'm just giving the answer to your question for writing an article in a journal, okay? And my answer to this is in the introduction section. It is the place where you are supposed to give a general framework of the topic of your research, plan or talk about the research question, what you want to do with this, and then the objectives, the 2 or 3 objectives, general, because you are going to explain then throughout the methodology that you are using to find out if this is this way or this other way. So, to sum up, in the introduction section, framework, I'm going to talk about bilingual education in Spain according to general current laws and so on. My research question is, to what extent, English people like very much this, to what extent am I able to blah, 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 whatever. The objectives selected for this, to give answer to these research questions are A, blah, 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 B, blah, 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 C, blah, blah, blah. Or you don't have to use ABC. You just say 1, second, and finally this one. And then the methodology used for this is going to be blah, 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 because this is the introduction. And then in the empirical section, the research in itself, the methodology that you use, participants, instruments, whatever it is. And finally, in the conclusions, in the data analysis section, is where you are going to explain. According to the first objective, the results show that blah, 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 blah. And then is when the researcher, the individual researchers appear, you have to analyze the data. Now you give your opinion in this section, in the analysis and in the conclusions, is where the real personalized opinion of the researcher appears. Did I answer? Yes. Okay. So this is about objectives. That will be the task that we will be doing. Write 3 objectives according to the needs of your research. I think in your minds you got clear what would you do in these mock articles that we are planning, okay? So in this case, for instance, the example, study the impact of bilingual education on 21st century graduates from bilingual programs in Mexico. Another one was measure the linguistic success of this Mexican population according to the 3 dimensions, employability, mobility, and intercultural competence. So if my objective is measure, I have to measure that. And I have to show evidence that I've done this. And I have to conclude what's the final result about this measurement. So I have to measure, because this is my objective. And the final one, analyze these dimensions to find the interrelation among these 3 dimensions to extract conclusions. So if my 3 dimensions are mobility, employability, and intercultural competence, I have to use a methodology, whatever it is, to interrelate one another to see what's going on. Is there any relation between employability and mobility? Is there any relation about intercultural competence and mobility? Whatever the objectives I've planned, then I have to give answer to them. Yes?
I think that writing well-defined objectives is one of the most difficult tasks for me when writing an article. So I was wondering if you follow any structure for objectives writing, because I have been taught to answer 3 questions: what, how, and what for, when writing an objective. But I don't know if you think that's a coherent structure for research objectives, or if you follow any other structure, or if you have any guides for the objectives writing.
Okay. It's very difficult to give a general answer because depending on the research, if it is a case study or if it is a quantitative study or mixed methodology or whatever, it's very difficult. But I think you have to stop reading the references, you have to make a kind of break and then try to talk to someone which is not in your area of knowledge and explain what you want to do. Right? Your friend, your mother, your partner, your boyfriend, whoever. And then you say, I want to make an article about this. And then the person would ask, and what do you want to find out? And then when you give answer, you are planning the objectives. I want to investigate if this is going to happen, if I do this. I want to demonstrate whatever. So I think the objectives come when you out loud talk about the topic, the research gap that you want to work on, and then try to write down the 2 or 3 objectives you want to find out in the end. But I'm not sure if I'm giving you a real, I mean, it's very general, but I cannot give you much more than this. Because it depends, of course, we Galician people always say, it depends. Depende, no? It depends on many different reasons. The context, the type of research, you know, so many different agents are implied that it's very difficult to give you a structure for the objectives part. Yes.
I just wanted to clarify the role of hypothesis, especially in qualitative research, because we have a project to do, and the other day we found out in our institutions we had different ideas whether we should or should not include a hypothesis.
So your question is, sorry?
Do we have to include a hypothesis in a qualitative study?
In a qualitative?
Yes.
As I said, we are forced to do scientific from the sciences area to the humanistic approach and to the linguistic approach and to the social sciences approach, and sometimes it's very forced-like. So, in a qualitative study, in my view, maybe there's not a huge hypothesis. Maybe it's something much more simple, or maybe something that I want to find out in a classroom with X students according to this model or whatever. So sometimes there's no hypothesis. So my recommendation for you is do not get into very wild and very, how can I say, difficult areas that you don't really know, because you are going to fail. If I don't know about this, I don't know, so I'm not going to do it right. I prefer to focus on something which is in my area and I can control from the very beginning to the end and make the full circle, than trying to talk about qualitative, quantitative, SPS, and things that I don't really know. My suggestion for that, if you want to do that, because maybe you want, is trying to find out the perfect partner who knows about that. In this example, is an example of an article I've been writing with Elena, the host of this conference, and Roberto Espejo Moedano. Why? Because Roberto Espejo Moedano is the specialist on SPSS, quantitative methodology, Cronbach, alpha, and things that I don't really know and I don't want to know, because it's not my world. I don't know anything about that. I feel frustrated because I don't understand all these numbers in a table. I don't. I'm sorry. I don't. I prefer to find out what this student with special needs, in the end of an implementation of a model of teaching and learning, finally fulfilled, and it was positive. To me, that's much more important than all these numbers in a table. But this is for me. The journals want SPS and all these things, you know, like the scientific model. So you have to balance and decide what you want to do. And if you don't know how to, try to find the best partner for your trip. That's my suggestion. So in that way, you control the part that you control really, and the other person is going to help on that. In that way, it can be completed. More questions? Yes. Sure, I really love that.
I was thinking about how, so we have to be impersonal, of course, but sometimes I like feel the urge to say we. So can I use we? So we gave this questionnaire to these people, blah, or we investigated the correlation. Can we do it? Or it's better to say the researchers tried to find the correlation between.
Well, as I said, it depends on the editors of the journal. I remember once I wrote, I was so convinced of my idea that I used I, not we, just I, because it was my idea, only one. In this case, it was mine. So I said, I've done this, I've done whatever. So the editors say, why are you so proud and just saying all the time that you, and you? So I say, well, okay, then I have to use a different option. Then I send it to another journal and change. And then they say, this idea is yours. Why don't you use your own personal? So you never know. It depends on the scope and focus of the journal. You have to read it carefully and then see. The basic idea is that you click on 2 or 3 articles of the journal to see how things are going on. You just read 2 or 3 articles of this journal, and then you will see how is the guidelines, how is the personal, impersonal, or majestic plural, whatever you want to use. So the answer is, it depends on the journal, and of course you can use we, of course you can use I, of course you can use impersonal. Why not? The only thing is that maybe the other person who is in front of the edition of the review thinks in a different way than you. So maybe in this case they would say, no. That's why I said at the beginning of this session, never surrender. If you have a good idea, it's going to be a good idea. And it depends on the person who is going to read and say, let's say, the judge of your idea, who may say, I like, I don't. But this does not mean that it's not a good idea. So never surrender. If they say we, okay, use we. If they say I, okay, then use the first person singular. If they want impersonal, research, show that, blah, blah, blah. And you are going to find out many different journals, many different articles to write, many different options and styles. So it's not a problem. But never allow no one to say that things have to be just in one way. To me, this is not the way. Because, as I said, as many people in the world, as many ideas to share, as many styles to write, and as many options to develop. So, that is. Well, just to end up, the references. As I said, I would prepare a pack with this phrase bank and with this PowerPoint presentation, of course, and another things that I consider may be useful for you in the future. Let me try if I can find now another. I wanted to display now. Control. I don't know. I cannot find the mouse now. I'm sorry. It's there, but not here. Oh my God. Alt? Ah, yes, 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 yes. So how can I go now to here? No, here, yes. No veo lo mismo. No es de tocar. Es que yo aquí... No sé. Bueno. Okay. I wanted to share with you a document I had ready with the key points. Let me check if we can find it. Es que no se ve. Aquí. Ahora, vale. So maybe now I can, yes, okay. Well, this presentation was my recap of how to make the first session in which we talked about title, authors, whatever. Now I want you to see very quickly what's in a real one, like this one. This review is called ICALA. It belongs to the University of Columbia. And then you will see real examples. This is for you to have another view, right? So, this is the website for this journal, an example, of course. And then you have, a little bit bigger. And then you have what they say. In this journal, they say, guidelines for writing the title, abstract, and keywords. Title, abstract, and keywords are the most visible parts of an article. They are used by extracting and indexing services to cross-reference. As such, they must be written carefully and strategically. So they give ideas for you to write the title. You see here, we are not going to stop reading because I'm going to give this to you, but you have in bold letters the key points. Reflects the context, clear, specific, brief, complete, avoid unusual abbreviations or jargon, identify the research problem, try to make it interesting, attractive, ingenious, motivated. You see? More or less all the things that I've been trying to explain in my previous speech. If you want more information about this, of course, then you can go to the manual by American Psychological Association, the APA style, which is in our area of knowledge, we usually follow the APA style. I don't know you. Sometimes it's the MLA, sometimes it's another option, but in our world, usually use the APA style, 7th edition. And I have a very interesting summing up of how to cite that I can include in this pack I'm going to share with you. And then you can go to this APA association. You see, in this review, they say maximum of 15 words for the title. 1 or 2 keywords is important that are included in the title. This is important for you to remember. It's interesting that the most important word for you, if it is motivation, if it is bilingual education, if it is primary, because you want to focus on primary, that this word comes at the very beginning of the title, because it's the first thing you start reading, okay? So it's what they say. Most specific part of the article's content at the beginning, so that the topic of the article is more visible. The abstract. What these editors say about the abstract? Vital role, as we said, very important, because it's very effective in the cataloging research, so it's what researchers are going to follow. They usually are in the online databases, so they very quickly find out with this, I don't know, all these routers and research tools and engines you see here, PubMed, Google, Academic Search, and so on. So, what do they must include? Keywords, accessible language, highlight the most interesting element, use double parentheses in case of, this is the guidelines for ICALA journal, but maybe in another journal, bilingual education journal, they ask you for a different option. Maybe no, sure, that's for sure. They got their own way, their own style, each journal. In this case, they ask, use double parentheses, faithfully represent the article, so the short abstract is going to represent as a minimum piece, independent, remember, the full article that you are going to display. State the purpose of the research, define where and with whom it was done, so the WH questions, who, when, why, what for, what results, and so on. Define where and with whom it was done, the methods of data collection, the analysis, the main results and the implications of the study if available. Be accurate and detailed. Make sure it is written in a single paragraph, self-explanatory, so independent, as we said. Keywords, important words as the name it says, choosing the correct ones so that other researchers will find your article. Be specific, avoid general terms, you see, as philosophy. Philosophy is such a general term that is nothing. Include only abbreviations that are firmly established in the field, EFL, ESL, what we were talking about. Number at least 5, small caps, remember, no capital letters, separated by semicolon. This is the general tendency, the general option, semicolon. And this is important, you will read it, okay? Writing, the introduction, the theoretical framework, the method, the discussions and conclusions section. I'm not going to stop here because we have just nearly 5 minutes, so if there's any question I would like to answer. But in here you will find some suggestions to write the introduction, to write the theoretical framework, to go through the method. Of course, this is the ICALA journal way of presenting things. And finally, the discussion and conclusion. I think this is, I like that because there are many. That's why I chose this one to share with you. And of course, always see and follow the APA Publication Manual 7th edition in the case that you are in this area in which we use the APA style. So, I think that was, well, the most important things I wanted to share with you. If there's any question or doubt, I can give answer in the 5 minutes that we got left, because at 12, Alberto is going to follow with the second session, and probably he will help you with all the different parts of the how to publish, how to prepare an article for an impact journal. Yes? Any question or doubt? Suggestion?
Very much. I think that like the 2 books that you're going to send us through PDF are going to be super useful for the future and for the present.
I hope so.
Yes.
And I would like you to, in the future, come back to me and write an email and say, Pilar, that was very fine. I was able to publish in this very important journal, and it was helpful, and I will be delighted to read that. And sure. And never, yeah, that's important. Because sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm doing everything wrong. I cannot go on. I'm just doing everything in a bad way. I'm not able to do that. And well, of course, we have moments in our lives, and sometimes we are not as positive as we are supposed to be. But I think we never. If you got an idea in your mind and you think it's good, it is good. I'm sure. So we have to find out the place, the moment, the partner to follow the path till the end. The proper one to implement and put that into action. So never surrender. That's my final advice. It was a pleasure to share with you this session. I will be until tomorrow, I think. On Wednesday morning I'm leaving, but I will be all around this conference. I will be delighted to talk to you, to share a chat, whatever you like. You are very welcome to Galicia if you decide to visit us. In this presentation, my email is there, and you can contact me throughout Elena, which is a very, very close friend of mine, apart from being a very, amazing specialist and professional, and I'm so happy to be here. So thank you very much.